The most famous rule in bike fitting has no scientific basis. It's been in every fitting book since the 70s. Your local shop probably used it on you. And when researchers went looking for the biomechanics behind it, there weren't any. I'll show you which one and what to do instead. But we start with the one measurement that matters more than everything else combined and that most riders have wrong. If you're new here after 100 plus triathlons, 31 Ironman finishes, one of them Kona. I've had good fits and bad ones, and I've paid for both in the back half of long races. Everything in this video I've measured on my own bikes. Let's go. While I would highly advise you find a local bike shop with expertise and professional equipment to do a comprehensive fit if you are serious and plan to race frequently, a professional bike fit can take 2 to 4 hours. Now, with that said, even a first-time cyclist triathlete can benefit from having their bike properly set up. This video is intended to help you make that step forward. Everything in this video you can do at home. Here's the entire kit. A tape measure, a hardcover book, a plumb line, a bolt on a string works. A phone, masking tape, a marker. Optional, a phone goniometer app, and a trainer so the bike stays still. 8 measurements, in order because they depend on each other. Change one and you have to recheck the next. Write that down. Fit is a sequence, not a checklist. Before you touch the bike, 5 body numbers. Inseam, barefoot, back to the wall, feet about 15 centimeters apart. Hardcover book between your legs, spine up, pressed firmly, and I mean firmly, you're simulating a saddle. Mark the top of the book on the wall, floor to mark. Do it 3 times and average. Torso length. Sit on the floor against a wall. Floor to sternal notch, the V-shaped dip at the base of your throat. Arm length. Acromion, the bony point on top of your shoulder to the center of your closed fist. Shoulder width. Acromion to acromion. Sit bone width. Sit on corrugated cardboard on a hard bench. Lean forward slightly to mimic riding posture. Stand up. Measure center to center between the 2 deepest dimples. A cardboard imprint gets you within about 3 millimeters of professional pressure mapping. Your saddle should be 15 to 20 millimeters wider than that number. Those 5 numbers drive everything that follows. This is the one. More research has been done on saddle height than every other fit variable combined, and it's still where most riders are wrong. 3 methods. They disagree, and understanding times why times they disagree is the whole lesson. Method 1, Le Mans. Inseam times 0.883. Measure from the center of the bottom bracket to the top of the saddle along the seat tube. Developed by Cyrille Guimard in the early 80s, working with Lamond and Hinault. Method 2, Hamley and Thomas, 1967. Inseam times 1.09. But measured from the pedal axle with the crank at bottom dead center in line with the seat tube to the top of the saddle. Those two look wildly different. They're not. They're measuring from different origins. Lamond excludes crank length. Hamley includes it. When researchers compared them directly, there was no significant difference. P-value of 0.917. Method 3, Holmes. Forget the tape. Measure the knee angle directly, with the pedal at 6 o'clock, foot in normal riding position. Target 25 to 35 degrees of flexion. Here's the problem with the formulas. When researchers checked how often each method actually lands inside that 2.5 to 3.5 window, heel toe hit it 70% of the time. Le Mans 65%, 2 out of 3, on the single most important measurement on your bike. And it gets worse. In a study of well-trained cyclists, people who've been doing this for years, 56.5% had saddle heights outside the recommended range entirely. So the formulas are a starting point. The angle is the answer. But now here's the part almost no video covers, and it's the reason people set their saddle by the book and still get it wrong. Static and dynamic knee angle are not the same number. When you sit still with the pedal at the bottom and someone measures you, your ankle is neutral. When you're actually pedaling under load, your ankle plantar flexes at the bottom of the stroke, you point your toe, slightly, involuntarily. And because your foot is locked to the pedal, that drives your knee into more flexion. The difference is about 8 degrees. So a rider measured at 30 degrees static is riding at around 38 degrees dynamic. That's why motion capture fitters often work to a 30 to 40 or 33 to 43 degree dynamic band instead. And there's a catch on top of the catch. Dynamic angle changes with power output. Measure someone at 150 watts and 300 watts and you'll get different numbers, which means dynamic measurement is only reliable if you control the wattage. And that's exactly why static Holmes is arguably the times more repeatable times method for a home fit. How to do this with your phone, trainer, warm up 10 minutes, film from the side, dead level with the bottom bracket, at least 3 meters back so you're not distorting the angle with perspective. Ride at a normal endurance wattage. Pause on the frame where the crank is straight down. Measure hip, knee, ankle. What you feel. What it means. Pain at the front of the knee, saddle too low or too far forward. Pain behind the knee, saddle too high or too far back. Hips rocking side to side, too high, toes pointing at the bottom, compensating for too high. Quads cooked, hamstrings never engage, too low. Above 40 degrees of knee flexion is associated with meaningfully more pain. That's patellofemoral compression. Adjust in 2 to 3 millimeter increments, never more. Ride it for a week before judging. Now the famous rule I opened with, KOPS, which stands for knee over pedal spindle, crank at 3 o'clock. Drop a plumb line from the tibial tuberosity, the bony bump just below your kneecap. It should land on the pedal axle. It shows up in Coney's Italian Federation papers in the early 70s. It's in Le Mans' book. It's taught to new fitters today. And it has no biomechanical justification. Here's why. KOPS depends entirely on the direction a plumb bob hangs, which is gravity. But gravity has nothing to do with your ability to produce torque at the crank. Your leg, the crank, and the bottom bracket form a system of levers and pivots. Thinking of your thigh as pushing down through your knee is the wrong mental model entirely. So why does it work? Because it's a lucky coincidence that lands most road riders in a roughly balanced position over the bottom bracket. And it does put the knee's hinge roughly over the pedal at the moment of actual peak force, which isn't at 3 o'clock. It's around 110 to 120 degrees past top dead center. So use it as a starting reference, not a rule. For most endurance road riders, 0 to 20 millimeters behind the spindle is a better default. Classic texts describe roughly a 45-55 fore-aft weight distribution as the target. Modern fitters have largely moved on to 3 better references, where your body mass actually sits, your shoulder angle, and saddle contact pressure. And the rule that overrides everything, KOPS is meaningless if your saddle height is wrong. Height first, always. Change the height and your fore-aft reading changes with it. One more thing while we're at the saddle. Tilt. Level or 1 to 3 degrees nose down. Never nose up, that drives pressure straight into your perineum. Past about 3 degrees down and you start sliding forward and holding yourself up with your hands, which just moves the problem to your shoulders. Your foot is the only rigid connection in the whole system, and it's the one people set once and never look at again. The traditional standard, the center of your first metatarsophalangeal joint, the big toe knuckle directly over the pedal axle. There's real support for it. Pressure mapping shows peak foot pressure passing through or near that point. The counter argument is mechanical. Your foot is a lever and the fulcrum is your ankle. The further forward the cleat sits, the longer that lever and the harder your calf has to work just to stop your ankle from collapsing. How hard? At 90 RPM and 250 watts with a size 9 foot, the equilibrating force in the Achilles tendon at the 3 o'clock crank position is around 650 newtons. Every revolution, all ride, what the research found when they moved cleats back. Economy, no significant change. Multiple studies, no measurable difference in heart rate or oxygen consumption. Anyone telling you rearward cleats make you more efficient is ahead of the data. But EMG told a different story. Moving cleats posterior reduced calf activation gastrocnemius and soleus and shifted work toward the tibialis anterior and rectus femoris. It reduces lower limb load, which is exactly why triathletes should care. Same watts, less calf. Calves you're about to need for a half marathon? The protocol. 1. Tape on the side of the shoe. Feel for the first metatarsal head, the bony bulge behind your big toe, and the fifth behind your little toe. Mark both 2. Draw a line across the sole, connecting them 3. Draw the lengthwise center line of the shoe. 4. Where they cross is your starting axle position. 5. Check. Your pedal axle marker should be at least 10 millimeters behind that first metatarsal point. Bigger feet, bigger number. The dependency nobody warns you about. Moving your cleats backward effectively lengthens your leg relative to the pedal. You will usually need to lower your saddle, change cleats, remeasure height, sequence, not checklist, float. Your knee should track in the plane of the crank arm, not wobble in toward the top tube. Excessive forefoot tilt makes the foot rotate outward under load, and if your cleat won't let it, that stress goes straight up your kinetic chain to your knee. Shimano yellow gives you 6 degrees each way. Look gray, 4.5. Speed play, up to 15. On leg length, about 95% of riders have a measurable discrepancy, averaging about 5 millimeters. Under 6 millimeters, do not shim. Use more float and let the leg find its own path. Shim only above 6 millimeters and only after a clinician confirms it's structural. Now the front end. This is where fit stops being physics and starts being about you specifically. The 4 angles that define your position. These come from a study that measured fitted riders and reported the actual distributions. Knee range, 36 degrees plus or minus 7. Elbow, 19 degrees of flexion plus or minus 8. Never locked out. Hip, 77 degrees plus or minus 5. Shoulder torso to upper arm, 112 degrees plus or minus 7. Back angle measured hip to shoulder against horizontal. Hands on the hoods is the one you choose based on what kind of rider you are. Rider back angle, relaxed endurance, 55. 50 degrees beginner, racer 50. 45 degrees experienced racing, 45. 40 degrees elite, 40. 30 degrees more upright than about 55 degrees, and you're on the wrong style of bike. Expect roughly 10 degrees of change, moving from hoods to drops. The simplest cockpit check there is, hands on the hoods. The angle formed by hip, shoulder, and elbow should be near 90 degrees. More than 90, you're overextended, your bars are too far away. Less than 90, you're bunched up too close. Shoulders down, not hunched. Elbows soft, not locked. And your hands should rest on the bars, not hold you up. Handlebar width, match your acromion to acromion measurement. Narrower is more aero, but restricts breathing a trade that only pays for short, fast efforts. Here's a finding that'll save you money on stems. Hamstring flexibility statistically predicts how much handlebar drop you can hold. Statistically significant, P equals 0.01, which means if you can't get low, the problem usually isn't your stem, it's your hamstrings. Straight leg race. Lie on your back, one leg flat, raise the other straight. 80 degrees or more, you can handle a big drop. 60 to 70 moderate position. Under 60, stay upright and fix the mobility first. You'll get more speed from the flexibility than from the stem anyway. Thomas test. Sit at the edge of a table, lie back, pull one knee to your chest. If the other thigh drops below horizontal, your hip flexors are fine. If it stays up in the air, a low front end is going to hurt and you're going to fight it every ride. Your position is a negotiation with your current mobility, not with your ambition. If you're on a tri-bike or thinking about one, the rules change. Not the same, but lower, different. The single number that defines the difference, seat tube angle. Road bikes, 72 to 74 degrees. Tri and TT bikes, 76 to 80. Here's why that matters, and it's the most misunderstood thing in triathlon. When you lower your torso, you close your hip angle. Your thigh comes up toward your chest and jams against your ribs at the top of every stroke. That costs you power, it costs you breathing, and it destroys the hip flexors you're about to need for the run. A steep seat tube rotates your entire body forward over the bottom bracket. Your torso comes down, but your hip angle stays open because your whole pelvis rotated with it. Same low front end, completely different hip. Your targets, parameter target effective seat angle. Start at 80 degrees, adjust from there. Hip angle, 80, 90 degrees. Below 90 degrees, you're borrowing against your run frame size, often 1-2 centimeters smaller than your road bike. What to size by? Stack and reach, not frame size. Aero bar setup, extension length, slight elbow bend on the pads, too long arches your back, too short bunches your shoulders. Pad height, drop until your back is flat and you can still breathe at race pace. That second condition is not optional. Forearms horizontal, elbows narrow. Narrowing elbows 5 to 8 centimeters is worth 8 to 15 watts more than deep wheels. Head down, chin tucked, 10 to 15 watts at 40 kph from head position alone. Cleats slightly rearward to save the calves for the run. Weight goes through the elbow pads into your shoulders, not your hands. If you're gripping the extensions to hold yourself up, the position is wrong. One more, because it's changed more than anything else in the last 5 years. Crank length. Power output is essentially flat across the normal range. A foundational study found a clear plateau, meaningful power loss only shows up below about 140 to 145 millimeters. So shorter cranks don't make you more powerful, they make you more positionable. Shorter cranks shrink the pedal circle, which means your knee doesn't come as high at the top, which opens your hip angle without changing anything else. That's why 165 millimeters has become a common starting point in triathlon, with the range running from 155 to 170. Pogacar dropped from 172.5 to 165. Cadence usually comes up 3 to 8 RPM on its own. And here's the framing that makes it obvious. Frodeno rides 172.5 millimeter cranks at an 860 millimeter saddle height. Apply that same ratio to a rider with a 670 millimeter saddle height, and you'd put them on about 135 millimeters. Crank lengths were standardized around bikes, not around bodies. Rule: every 5 millimeters shorter, the pedal sits 5 millimeters higher at the bottom. Saddle height comes up to match. Let's put it in order. This is the whole video on one card. 1. Body measurements, inseam, torso, arm, shoulder, sit bones. 2. Saddle width, sit bones, plus 15, 20 millimeters. 3. Cleat position because it changes effective leg length. 4. Saddle height formula for the ballpark, knee angle for the answer. 5. Saddle fore, aft, KOPS as a reference, then 0, 20 millimeters behind 6. Saddle tilt level to 1, 3 degrees, nose down 7. Reach and drop 90 degrees, hip, shoulder, elbow, back angle to match your mobility. 8. Recheck saddle height because step 7 moved you 2 to 3 millimeters at a time. 1 change per week. Write down every number before you touch anything. And here's what I want you to take from all of this. The reason KOPS survived 50 years without any science behind it isn't that people are stupid. It's that fit has always been taught as a set of rules: do this, measure that, land on this number. But your body isn't a rule. It's a system with constraints. Your hamstrings set your drop. Your hip mobility sets your aggression. Your cleats sets your effective leg length, which sets your saddle height, which sets your fore aft. Everything touches everything, which means the goal was never to hit the numbers. The goal is to find the position where the legs are the limiter, because the legs are the part you can train. Everything else in fit exists to get out of the way. If you found this video helpful, join our free endurance community at saltmilefitness.com. I am JT, and I will see you in the next one.